without sound.
Mark, do you want me to stop sharing?
We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
And I see we have Dan in the chat saying, sometimes I lower my heartbeat to 35 to 40. And for a word, I jump to 190 to 200. Now it's 70. I hope to reach minimum 1 and maximum 300. Wow. You'll have to share that with us at some point, Dan. Thank you. Alex, I think I didn't share the screen the whole time, but did you hear all the words?
Actually, we missed the first paragraph. So the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding of and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for healthcare professionals' clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional, medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling for medical issues, concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments. Readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. This is a natural process. That is the key point that we would like to emphasize. And I want to welcome everybody from around the world. This is the North American Corona Telegram team in English. And so this is part of the Keshe Foundation Canadian Education Team series, and also part of the KFTV Canadian team. All of us are in this together in terms of North America. That includes the US and, of course, Mexico. But as we're looking down the road, eventually we'll all be flying one flag or even no flag. So I want to welcome everybody, because this is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute. Is a presentation on plasma science. It's a continuation of the basic understanding. I have changed the schedule around. Today's topic is actually going to be memory. And my name is Alexander. I am from Canada, and it is May 30th, 2021. And this is the Keshe Foundation Canada Plasma Education Series. We started back in October with the Brazilian group. We were teaching a basic teaching, and the message that we want to get across, and we still have to get across and repeat, is that this teaching is for the basic knowledge of new knowledge seekers. But it is also the basic knowledge for advanced knowledge seekers, because we need teachers. And the only way the teachers can do that is to graduate, understand the technology in simple terms, so that we can condense 3,000 hours of teaching, and that's at a minimum, down to a manageable amount of time. And terminology is absolutely important. So we discuss this every week, and we repeat and repeat and repeat. And we try and use that terminology within a context that makes sense. And so for a lot of people, we're attracted to the Keshe Foundation because of the Cups of Life. And so we divided it into basic teaching for those. There are many who wanted to know more. We offered the intermediate teachings and then the advanced teachings. But frankly, all of this is just really basic stuff. And so we wanted to extend that and emphasize certain important points because we've gone down a different road. And so to simplify things, we reevaluated the x-axis, the y-axis, the z-axis, and its relationship to the Krebs cycle, and how the DNA, which are the byproducts of the amino acids within our cups of life, and how they continue on into the codons, and how they affected our thinking, our brain, and the rest of our body, and then the structure of our body, which is a pile of bones, isn't it? And if it wasn't for the fact that oil and water don't mix, it would also be a pile of mush. So the boundary between the oil and the water allows for our physicality to exist, and the support of this is our bones. And when you look at the bones, how did that happen? And who did that? Who was the designer? Who wrote the blueprint? Who was the architect? And you know, it had to come from somewhere, because we're all have the basic constituents, although in different shapes slightly, and in a uniqueness, because there's over 7 billion of us on this planet. But that is nothing compared to the over 70 trillion cells in our body, and they all communicate, and they're all well organized. What is the blueprint? Where did this come from? And so this is why we moved memory up here, because there has to be a memory before there can be a manifestation. And this may be the last discussion on manifestation, because what we're talking about is the books of Mr. Marantevakuli Cash, which includes book number 1, which is the Universal Order of Creation of Matter. And the fundamental point is that the creation of the universe is fundamentally important to us. It is the most important question that we want to answer, besides all the aspects that we have in our life that we are deeming important on a day-to-day basis, and they are important because they get us from one day to the next. However, the overall understanding has to come from how the universe is creating, because that affects our conduct. And in order to understand this, the basis has to be an understanding of energy as a charge in motion. And energy is always in motion, and the universe exists from this energy. So we see on the cover of book number 1, the creation of the basic plasma. And this plasma picture, which consists of matter, dark matter, and antimatter, is non-physical. It's non-visible. And once you have one plasma, then you have another plasma. And then there's the interaction of these two plasmas, and energy goes back and forth, and it follows various rules. Now we try and simplify these rules, but as we go deeper into the knowledge, we find that we have to have a broader understanding of actually how these rules apply. So fundamentally, in the terminology, we discussed the magnetical gravitational relationship, and we found that that is a natural process. This is a natural process of energy in motion, and as such, it has a charge. So the charge is what indicates the energy in motion. And we found that we can increase the energy in motion using the nanostate, and we can increase that by an order of magnitude, and we can do the same by elevating to a GAN state. And so in ordinary physics, we have to understand surface to volume ratios and susceptibility, because there's a unique characteristic in the physical state, and that is the monatomic structure. And this monatomic structure is the basic geometry of the building of the various dimensions that we can go through with the various energy states. And how fast we go through these energy states is what we refer to as a gradient. So the faster we go, the greater the dynamism. And when we go at higher elevated energy states, we travel at higher speeds. And so this affects our whole understanding. And so to simplify it, we introduced the terminology to understand the origin of principal matter, its relationship to us on this earth in the form of amino acids, which are the building blocks of life and actually the building blocks of the DNA RNA combination. And then the structure that forms what we call a star formation, which is a precursor to a plasma state. And it is the the precursor structure which begins the use of the principal matter, converting it into a rotating field. And we see this rotating field all the time. And it's one of the key discussions that we will have today to further explain the rotation, because we understand that rotation is basically having to do with one plane, and that being the x-axis. But there is a dynamic plasma state, which involves a non-tangibility, and there are residues, and we are a residue. We are a physical residue of the dynamic plasmatic state. And this is not a derogatory comment. This is just a fact. And it's something that we've all actually sought after. And what it was a conversion of energy from a dynamic state to a physical state. And we were able to achieve that. We call that birth. And our life has been discussing this terminology in physical terms. And some of the terms that we looked at is the sequencing of energy and how we package it. And one of the fundamental ways of transferring energy is with the piezoelectric effect. And this piezoelectric effect is not just for bodybuilders, but it's also to understand that every bend in the road creates a negative charge. And so it creates a gradient. And the more bends you have, the more patterns you have that feed this gradient. And that's where the plasma feeding comes from. So we create a pattern, and we have a setup that is an attraction field. And this is the question, is an attraction field of what? And so the answer is a plasma attraction field. And we have other things to discuss in classes further on, as we also have other classes to discuss about emotional dimensions. And we've only discussed a few dimensions of the emotionality of man. And again, it had to do with the tangible manifestation. So we understand that we have a physical body, and somehow we operate within this physical plane, and we navigate between the past and the future. And this is called the present. And our interpretation of all of these dimensions is our emotion of presence. And so our presence manifests in the physical, tangible manifestation based on what we give our time and attention to. So we're all here on a Sunday afternoon, and we're grateful that you are here, and we hope you enjoy yourself, because this is very important. Can your presence here make a difference to the world? Do you care about that? How about, can your presence here make a difference just to your own life, just to your own family? And why wouldn't that be possible? Because you see, the way things are within our society, within our daily activity, if we focus on that, it can be very depressing. So we have to understand that our purpose on this planet is not to be depressed, but it is to move. It is to go beyond the limitations of science and spirituality, and to understand that we have a consciousness and an unconsciousness, and where we've been jammed into is a yellow submarine, which is down, down, way down in the sea of green. But, you know, we need to come up. We need to understand that there are universal forces. And yes, these universal forces do involve pushing and shoving, and change is a coming. And you wonder, is anybody really ready? And does anybody really want that? Well, speaking for myself personally, and I think on behalf of everyone who's here, yes, we are ready and we will make it happen. And it all has to do with changing our profile. And so when we looked at straight lines and bent lines, and we found that they, based on surface to volume ratios, so we created a charge on the ends of the lines, they would be negative. And by putting a bend in, we create another negative point. This is automatic. And then, of course, between the negatives, we create a positive. And so it looks like we now know we have a negative and a positive, but that indicates energy in motion. And like, where is this going? It's not going anywhere according to this picture, is it? But once we have a bend in the road, then we create another axis. And with that axis, now we create something else, because now we have combination, we have 2 dimensions. And so we have the beginnings of hydrogen and oxygen. And this is just very fundamental, very basic. But whether it's a sharp bend in the road or it's a curve, we still have the same properties by creating a negative charge. It's just that when we have a curve, we create many, many, many negative charges. And so this is the difference between a copper plate and a copper coil. And if a zinc, if a copper coil is nano-coated and the energy is increased by an order of magnitude, so now you can understand why the difference between a copper plate that is nano-coated and a copper coil that is nano-coated. Just saying. Because you see, energy is always in motion. And one of the gifts that we have on this planet is water. Water has an affinity to gas, and some of these properties has to do with the giving and taking of energy. And I would just like to take a few moments to review this, because we have so many would-be teachers, and this information is kind of fundamental, foundational, in fact. As energy is sheared off, energy is always positive. And in this diagram, we don't know where it's going. But that is one of the things that happens with water, because water is a universal solvent. So it's gladly to give off this energy. And when it does that, then it's seeking to combine with something else. And what it's seeking is some point where we have a neutron component as a core, because this becomes a gravitational plasma field. That includes a matter, dark matter, and antimatter state. And these all come together as we've described in the past. Energy is flowing through the universe, and it is flowing as a ray. And within that ray, there is a construct. And that construct also has a matter, dark matter, and antimatter. But within this construct, what it is carrying is different energy fields. And so this is the basic component of energy in motion. And it is this energy in motion which is seeking a plasma condition that is gravitational. And as such, based on the different energy levels, it contributes. And then how it contributes is what gives us the variety of life. And so all of us have this basic sequencing within our bodies, which I refer to as the Krebs cycle, which is the interpretation of the DNA and how it works through different sequenced energy fields. And in each energy field, because of the charge gradient within that field, there's a starting and a stopping. And within that starting and stopping process is a byproduct. And that byproduct is adenosine triphosphate, which we call ATP. And this ATP is the currency of life. So in our society, money is the currency of life. In this earth, water is the currency of life. In our bodies, the energy in the form of ATP is the currency of life. And we find that when we have a reduction in energy, which we call low energy, we've talked about that, we find that in the cytochrome B, there's a deficiency, and we've gone from an alkaline to an acidic condition. And so this affects our health. So we've gone from a healthy condition to an unhealthy condition, and we can regulate this, and we can regulate this with the plasma fields. But what I want to talk about more about today is last week we were looking at about the bone structure of the man, and we found that there are two different kinds of structures basically. Within the body, the bones go through the body. Within the head, the bones go around the head. And so there's a difference between these. And you look at, there are fingers, there are arms, there are legs, rib cages, and cranium. And you say, where's the blueprint for this? And wherever that blueprint was, it was connected to this planet through our amino acid, because our amino acid has an affinity with the magnetic field forces of this planet in conjunction with the gravitational field forces of the combination of the field forces of the Earth and the Sun. So there's the interaction of those field forces and what we were attracted to, and a connector is the carbon. And so the facilitator is the nitrogen. And the hydrogen and the oxygen are your magnetical gravitational relationships. And this is just basic, fundamental description. And as we see on the periodic table of elements, we find all the elements that are important for us as basic knowledge seekers. So in other words, the amino acid, Mr. Cohn, COHN, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. And when we make our cups of life, the copper and the zinc, and this is all right here. And so we see when we make the basic CO2 GANs, we use the copper and the zinc in a cup. And when we make the CO2 GANs, then we bring in the amino acid. And when we bring the amino acid, we also create the water. And so what we have are basically the two dimensions here. The x-axis, which is the rotation of the planet, and the y-axis, which is the range on this planet between the ground and the sky. And this is what we're doing. We're drawing energy in from the entire range, because the entire range goes through a gradient of where it has the lowest physical energy to the highest plasma energy. And it is this movement through this range, which is a gradient transition. And we can mimic this gradient transition within our cup of life. And I bring this subject up because this is one of the most hardest things to visualize. In order to move, there has to be a giving and taking. And in order to decide the giving and taking, you have to decide what you're going to give and take to and from. And so we find that for the sake of life on this planet, the GANs has an affinity with the water. They work in similar cases. And yes, both are physical. The GANs is physical and the water is physical. However, the GANs has a special affinity in that it can actually work with the plasmatic state. And so it is kind of at the upper limit of the physicality and is able to transcend the two states. And in that process, it is not only able to move, where it gives energy, and you have to give before you take, but that's how it moves. But in this case, the GANs is in the water, and it gives energy, and then it moves. And we think that these striations that we see, which we call the flux lines, that are actually representations of gravity, we think the GANs is moving within the cup of life due to gravity, where it's settling down due to gravity. Well, it cannot move without exchanging energy. So it's either going to exchange energy with the earth, and maybe it does, and it's also going to exchange energy with the water, and maybe it does. But this is what we do know about water, is there's two ways to raise the pH of water, and that's to add the chemicals to it or through electrolysis. And we can convert acidic water into alkaline water. And this is important for the body because we're 75% water, and we found out back in 1923 in ancient times that disease cannot live in an alkaline body. So something has happened in our society to make us very acidic. And that acidity has to do with the relationship between magnesium and calcium. And we find that calcium is fundamental to all the cells in our body, and it's the food that we need. Magnesium is fundamental to all the plants, and it's the food that they need. So the plants are the vertical people, we're the horizontal people. And so let's talk about the horizontal people here, because that's who we are. And we find that calcium has a unique characteristic in that it can be water soluble or insoluble. And it can also just be in suspension. And we don't understand enough about this characteristic, but thank God that our body does, because we find in our thigh bone a kitchen where we are producing white blood cells and red blood cells and stem cells. And this is all in the bone marrow. And although the thigh bone is very strong and very rigid, but clearly there is a way of transferring energy and transferring these cells across the barrier of what we call physically the bone. So there's another operation here beyond the physical. We have to understand that. And the same way we have to understand that our cells communicate. First of all, they communicate to themselves, where there's an inside to the cell and an outside to the cell. So this we call intracellular communication. And then one cell has to communicate with another cell. And we find that all 70 trillion cells in our body are unique. How is that possible? So, and they all have a unique location, a unique address, and they are capable of being repaired. And if we have proper communication, then this is healthy. And if we have improper communication, this is cancer. And cancer is a disruption of intracellular and intercellular communication. And this communication has to come through some kind of energy field. And so we understand that these energy fields are rotating. And we notice that there's a northern hemisphere and a southern hemisphere, and these fields are rotating, but overall the Earth is only rotating in one direction. So how are these hemispheres rotating their fields when the physical Earth is only rotating in one field? And that is the difference, the plasma reality and the physical reality. And they do work in combination. And it is this combination that creates another rotating field, which is the amalgamation of the northern rotating field and the southern rotating field. And you can clearly see that if one field is rotating on one plane and the other field is rotating on a similar plane in the other direction, how do those two fields interact? So there is a third rotating field, and that's this bullseye that you're looking at here, is operating in a rotating field perpendicular to the hemispheres of the Earth. In other words, this is what's keeping the hemispheres together. And the combination of these is what's creating the full dimension of the Earth. So in other words, we have been characteristically looking at plasma and trying to describe it as fields that have different strengths. So the rotating field is a ring, and that we call the x-axis. And when we cut through these rings, and let's say we're at the core, and let's say the core is our Earth, and then we go through these rings and go to the sky, that is the range on this planet. And when we cut through these rings, We call that transition. And then the size of these rings and the influence of this particular field, the way it is our z-axis. And since this field is not a physical field, somehow or other it becomes physical, and we call that transmutation. So what we're looking at here are plasma fields. But, you know, really we have this is an error. And it's time we fix that error. And all we have to do is just kind of slide things over a little bit and understand that when we look at a microcosm of these fields, so in other words, what is this microcosm? Well, let's say you are a basketball player. And so you throw a basket up into the air. And this basketball cuts through the flux lines. And because the flux lines seek density, you've now created a tension on these flux lines because you've changed the relationship of the ball to the flux lines. So naturally, the ball wants to come back down. And so we think of gravity as going on a transitional basis. But in fact, gravity goes in a transmission basis. In other words, it goes through a rotating field. But in our little tiny world, all we see is the cutting of these flux lines. And so we just assume that these are rings around the planet. But they have a difference in strength. And the reason they have a difference in strength is because they go through different gradients. And so it's just like the Earth going around the sun. It takes 365 and change days to go around the sun, and we call that a year, and we come back to where we started. No, we come back to where we started with respect to the sun, but not with respect to the rest of the universe. And that is why when we look at our history and we find different monuments, like we find lions outside the Giza, and we find bulls and rams. These are monuments identifying eras of the Earth spinning around the sun. And each of these eras is 2,160 years. And if I look at my clock, for simplicity purposes, it only has 12 hours. And I just have to know if it's in the AM or the PM, because 2 times 12 hours is 1 day, which is 24 hours. And that's all generally that I put on my clock. And I may have a little bit more sophisticated clock, which will give me the day, or maybe even the week, or the month, or even the year, you know, just in case you sleep that long and you miss a year here or there. So you want to keep track of which year you're in. But who keeps track of 2,160 years? And why do they keep track of it? Because wherever we are, year after year, we're never at the same place. And so we are moving through our own gradient of fields. And so our rotation is actually a spiral. And it is this spiral, really, that Mother Nature seems to understand, and we have to go to school to learn about this. So I've introduced a discussion on the Fibonacci sequence, and this is a mathematical sequence where the number is the sum of previous 2 numbers. So if we start at 0 and add 1, the total is 1. And we take that sum, which is 1, and add now 1. So now that is 1 and 1 is 2. So the answer is 2. So we add 2 to the previous number, which was 1, and 2 and 1 is 3. And I hope you see this pattern. So let's say like 13 is the sum of the previous 2. So 5 and 8 were the previous 2. You add those 2 together, you get 13. So the question that I have is, what school did the snail go to? You know, like, what blueprint did the snail use to build his house, to transmute that blueprint into this house? This is his house. It is his skeleton, and it's on the outside of his body. So it's not just outside of his brain, but it's outside of the total body. His body lives inside this house. And of course, the snail is growing. Well, if the snail is growing, the house has to grow as well. And it grows and follows this Fibonacci sequence. So that's what we talk about when we talk about spirituality, about the greater oneness. We look at, we start from a small spot and we spiral out. And so fundamentally, we discuss growth in our life as being various manifestations of basic math, addition, subtraction, or multiplication or division. And so cell multiplication comes through division, which is kind of ironic. And we find in plasma science that 1 + 1 is more than 2. And that's kind of ironic. So, and then we find that we're all different, but we're all the same. Isn't that ironic? So the thing is that it all comes from a center source. It has to start from somewhere. And that start is the start of something somewhere. And the continuation of that is the start of something somewhere. And so if we were to take this Fibonacci spiral and flatten it out a little bit, and you'll have to excuse my drawing here, because what I'm trying to show is the leading edge of this spiral. The leading edge of this spiral, and say this is the snail's home. And you look at that and it goes around and around and it grows. And it grows bigger every time it goes around. So in other words, the rotation of that building that goes around is bigger on every rotation. That's how the snail grows his shell. So that's the leading edge. And the way that this leading edge continues to grow is in a spiral. So these two spirals are actually perpendicular to each other. So in other words, the spiral at the center is rotating in one direction, and the spiral on the leading edge is rotating in another direction. So I hope you can see that on this snail here. You can see that it started at a very small spot and kept rotating around, and you can see the striations in the cell, and each striation represents one flux line, one rotation around the whole shell. And he does this underwater using calcium. And he does that on his own. I don't know if mommy taught him. I don't know if he had a blueprint, or maybe he had a computer. I don't know how he did this. And then we have this other seashell, which has a little bit of a difference, and it has these spikes on it. And these spikes are not in the direction of the rotating field or the leading edge. They're on the outside of the new edge. And so they rotate in a different direction. So we actually have three, not only rotating fields, but three spirals. And so this is called, the building of these fields is what we call memory. This is how memory grows. So when we look at now, we say that the basic structure would be the x-axis, that would be the rotating field. Then the leading edge would, I'm sorry, no, not the leading edge, but the spikes, as you can see, are the y-axis, and the leading edge becomes the z-axis, because the question becomes, how big is large? When does this snail stop growing? And as long as the environment is conducive for its growth, it's going to keep growing, I guess. We have snails in all different sizes. And, you know, I don't know enough about snails to know if this is a baby or an adult. And however, it'll do what it can do when the time is right, because it's obviously doing a good job of building the house in the first place. So we're saying that the rotating field and the progression of the rotating field is the building of memory. And then we're saying that the building of memory is part of growth. Well, how does that work? So when we look at the basic atomic chains and the conversions of these atomic change to a monatomic chain, and we see that we can create a rotating field that is still linked up to the other rotating fields without a physical bond. And that's the difference between the atomic chain and the monatomic non-chain. And then when we look at the fatty acid on the bottom, and we see the chain of carbon and how they're linked up and they have pairs of hydrogen. And so this is a saturated fatty acid, and it does have a head and it does have a tail. So it has a direction to go, and it has a field, and it has a structure, and it followed a pattern. And where did this pattern come from? And then you look at the nerves, and there's a neuron head, and there are dendrites. And so the head kind of looks like the man's head, and the dendrites look like the skeleton of the man. And then in between, it looks like a spine. And this is the axon, and it is encapsulated with myelin sheaths. And each of these myelin sheaths is created through this rotating field. And so the thickness of the myelin sheath is based on the number of rotations. And the leading edge of this myelin sheath grows exactly the same way as the leading edge I just described for Mr. Stan. In fact, as the leading edge is moving, it is a rotating field perpendicular to the rotating field of the myelin sheath. And then the combination of these myelin sheaths together with a gap in between, kind of like the nano gaps in your nano coating, these create a field strength. And the more that these myelin sheaths rotate around the axon, the more memory we have. So this brings up a couple of questions. So if we look at the basic atomic components, we find that each of the electron, proton, and neutron are structured with the basics of matter, antimatter, and dark matter. And the way they link up, then there has to be some kind of link that is strong enough to keep them together. And so what that is a field strength that is common to all of them. So basically, really, if we have an atomic structure of a particular element, the linking up of the matter is linking up with the matter in the electron, proton, and the neutron. And the linking up of the dark matter is in the electron, proton, and neutron. And so likewise, so is the antimatter. It's linked up in all three. And so this is the link that is, again, plasmatic. And the pictures that we're looking at here are also plasmatic, so not visible to the naked eye. Well, this is good. Let's look at how these rotating fields of light are moving within our singular component. So between the electron and the neutron is a field flow. And in order for that field to flow, it has to transfer all three fields: matter, dark matter, and antimatter. And in order to make them flow, there has to be a beginning and an end. So you can't just talk about the in between. You have to talk about the endpoints. And if you have the endpoints and if they're all the same, then what causes the in between to move? And so there has to be a repositioning, and that is the nature of plasma structure. Plasma is always positioning and repositioning based on what? So in this case, we have two plasmas that are repositioning so that there's a give and take. And in the process of this give and take, there has to be this flow, and it has to be organized. So it would be a lot easier that if this whole field was rotating. And so this is the basis of your infinity loop. And this is the crossover point. And it is this crossover point, which is exactly the same crossover point that you see between the field of the sun and the field of the earth, and the interaction of those plasma fields. It is at that crossover point that we were born. And so you start to see a pattern where you look at the nerve, and then you look at the skeleton, and you see there's a similarity there, where at the head, the skull goes around the brain, whereas in the body, the skeleton goes through the body. And our friend Mr. Moose, he had a little extra. He was growing skeletons on his head. And so he developed some horns. But what I want to talk about is the cups of life, the stacker unit. And we see that these are all different cups of life with different strengths, but they all look the same. And so what we're not seeing is the plasmatic field that each one is working on. And so it is this discussion today that I wanted to cover. And the reason for this is because Mr. Kesh is racing ahead, and we've gotten into an area. We've gotten into an area that is quite hard to understand, because we know the RNA is maternal and the DNA is paternal. And we say that because we're born in our mother's womb. And, you know, we also say we were born in the blink of daddy's eye, but, you know, these are all parables. The reality is that we all have a collective amnesia of where we came from. So this is what we do know. At birth, there was a boundary where before birth, we can't remember. But after birth, we can remember. We can remember what we've gone through with our life, assuming, of course, that we have all our faculties. So this collective amnesia that we have has to have some kind of purpose. And it seems to be that this amnesia has affected our understanding, because we know that we were born. And in fact, before we were, shall we say, given birth, you know, our parents might have told us what went on prior to that. And so we believe our parents, and they would be telling the truth. And, you know, the proof of the truth telling is the fact that, well, we're born. Hello. So, but there's a boundary between this RNA and DNA. So if we say that memory is a growth of this rotating, spiraling field, and so the question then becomes, do you believe your experiences, or do you experience your beliefs? So if the only thing that you can remember is after birth, then that is your experience. And we all believe our experiences, don't we? Despite the fact that it could be raining outside, and you may say that it's a lousy day, and I may say it's a great day. And one would wonder, how come we have the same day and we're having two different experiences? So our point of view has to come into play here. But nevertheless, the references to the present, which is a raining day. And so we have a belief that is associated with that experience. But if we don't believe that we were born, in other words, if we don't experience our beliefs, then how can we justify that we were born? You see, the argument breaks down here, because we were born, and that's a fact, but we don't remember that we have experienced it. So we have to believe that. But in our life, the only thing that we believe is what we experience. Well, why the contradiction? And the reason for that is because of this collective amnesia. So we see our life is between the boundary of the birth and the death. But if the growing of the memory is a building of the DNA, then the question is, what happens at death? That's another boundary, isn't it? Because if the DNA stops growing, then, because of death, then the physicality stops growing. So we cannot enhance our experience. We cannot enhance our memory. And so what do we take with us when we die? So is it possible for the DNA to grow during our physicality without the RNA growing? I mean, there's an RNA DNA connection. And if the RNA is our experience prior to our birth, if our RNA is our experience prior to our birth, and our DNA is our experiencing after our birth, and growth is the plasmatic building of these memories, and this memory is what we learn. So what we're experiencing today is now put into our memory bank, which we reference. Well, this memory bank, is it exclusively DNA? Or is it also enhancing the RNA? So if we are in kindergarten, and if this is our school for learning, and if life is for learning, then therefore what we came in was a body of knowledge that was enough for us to manifest a physical body. And so the whole purpose of life as it is now is for learning. And so what we can take away from here is the enhancement of the DNA RNA combination. In other words, you can't grow one without the other. And if this is what growth is, if memory is a representation of growth, so then birth has a boundary of collective amnesia, and life has a boundary of collective growth. And now, how are we going to graduate from here? And so that was the real reason that we want to have this lesson today, so that we can understand this point as we go forward, because what we're talking about is the transition. And we know the transition is the cutting through of the flux lines between the magnetical and gravitational relationship. And so our physicality is bound to our environment. And our environment is part of the matter state. And our connection is emotional, and that is where we are today, our emotion of presence. And our emotion of presence is non-physical, but we find that the GANS is an emotional detector. So the GANS has a special affinity to be able to detect the emotion from a physical state. Well, we seem to react very physically to our emotional state. So we talked about the heartbeat. So when we get excited and our heartbeat increases, and when we get stressed, we sweat. So we do change our physical state when we react to emotions. So it is perfectly logical that our physical body reacts to our emotional state, and that the GANS, which we are bags of GANS, we are GANS spaceships, shall we say. GANS also reacts to the emotional state. So there we are. And then we have to figure out what are we referencing? Are we only referencing what we see in the physicality? Can we only reference what is happening in the physicality and ignore what is happening in our emotional state? Or let's go higher, in our soul state, or let's go higher in the soul of the creator. Can one grow without the other growing? Is that possible? And I say it's not possible, because you see, we are in none of these three dimensions. Trinity are relationships, and they all represent dimensions. And you have to identify which field that you're operating in, because to understand that, then that establishes the relationship. And each field reference is a dimension. And our souls don't operate in these dimensions. They don't operate in the physical. They don't operate in the emotional. They operate in other dimensions, more powerful. And this is why when we look at our strength and we say, well, our strength is determined by the strength of our body, that's an earthbound strength. But when we look at the universal strength, we find that our tiny soul, through its connection with the universe, is much stronger. And it is our soul which is controlling our body, because it's our body, so therefore it's our soul. And in order to understand the strength of our soul, we have to understand that it is getting fed from somewhere. So this course of action that we manifest into memory and growth is being, shall we say, communicated from somewhere, because we know it's being communicated somewhere else, and that is to us. And how much of an effect do we have on this communication? Well, you better believe it. We are intimately involved. And so we are part of the creation of matter. Our physicality is a creation of matter. So we need to define what matter is. Matter is the manifestation of energy. Oh, the energy, yes. But the old science matter is a small m matter. The new science matter is a capital M matter. And in both cases, that manifestation is a binding of these energies. And in the process of the binding of these energies, we create a memory. And the growth of this memory is a part and parcel of creation. So the manifestation of these energies is creation. And so this binding that we see is actually a form of creation. And then we can create it obviously in the physical state, which we can touch and see. But there is a plasmatic state that we cannot touch and cannot see. but we definitely can sense it. And so this is the transmission of light matter. Light matter as in luminescent matter. And so how we transfer this energy is a relationship between the magnetical and gravitational field forces. In other words, both. Both have to come up with a balance. And when they come up with a balance, then we have a field that we call a maggraph. And this is exactly what we're trying to do to overcome the limitations of the scientific community with their terminology and the spiritual community with their terminology, and add the two together and contribute to a new kind of understanding where we have the manifestation of matter and the manifestation of the cells in our body and the co-opting of both and the co-creation of both. And what we are doing literally in this manifestation is actually converting energy from our soul into light. And that leads us to further discussion. So the basis of that discussion is to understand the reality, the manifestation of reality. So when two field forces that are similar come together, they form another. It is the formation of these fields that we call a manifestation. And it is the continuous plasma feeding that leads to this manifestation. And because of this plasma feeding, we see that this manifestation could be non-tangible or tangible, non-visible or visible, plasmatic or physical. In other words, there is a plasma reality and a physical reality. There is no rule that says the plasmatic reality needs to manifest into a physical reality. So the manifestation of this reality is a form artifact. In the physical reality, that manifestation is our physical presence. In the plasmatic relation, that is, in the plasmatic reality, it is the emotion of presence, is the form artifact. And in both cases, these are artifacts of energy and motion. So why I keep repeating the basics of the plasma forces is these are magnetical forces that involve attraction and repulsion. They involve both, and they create a field, a magnetical field, and then they create a gravitational field. And from there, we have a balance, which will create a maggraph. And from there, we can interact with other fields. So the identification of a magnetical field is the difference, the residue between the total of the attraction repulsion forces and the difference in the gravitational field is the difference between the total of the repulsion attraction forces. So these attraction repulsion forces are balanced maggraphs. And so if it is magnetical, it is the maggrav plus the negative charge. And if it is the gravitational, then it is the maggrav plus the positive charge. So this we have to understand that all of these forces are working in combination. And why I keep harping on it is because the cups of life are not the cups of the pandemic. They are the cups of life. And they do more than just what meets the eye. And more of us need to produce this. And we talk about the plasma dome and joining up all these fields. And because there is a certain magic that happens, you provide the pattern. So you get a zinc plate and a copper coil and a nanocoated copper coil. And, you know, you have to know that there's a magnetical field and a gravitational field. And when you look at how these things are interacting and what goes on, you have to see the interaction of these fields on a plasmatic level. And how can you see this on a plasmatic level? Well, that's the skill to learn. You can see how the fields work. Do you believe your experiences or do you experience your beliefs? There's a GANS. This GANS happens to be zinc and copper, and it produces a CO2 GANS. And then you see the amino acid on the top, and it builds up the water. And now we know that we're also building up calcium carbonate, which is the essence of our cell building and bone building and brain building. And the second cup is doing the same thing, only slightly different, because now we have a copper plate instead of a zinc plate, but we still have the magnetical field and we still have the gravitational field. And when we put the two cups together, we have a relationship where one is emotional and one is physical. And they work both the same, and they have this magnetical field. If we are dealing with the pandemic, keep the batches apart by at least a meter, because these fields are not limited by the physicality of the cup itself. And then as these fields grow, and they will grow with the introduction of the gravitational field, and the purpose of these cups of life. So fundamentally, and we say, it's to eradicate the virus. And how we do this is deplete the energy of the virus, because we know the virus is an energy pack. And so as an energy pack, one has to wonder what school did it go to know how to do this energy in motion. And as our sophistication grows, not only can we deplete the energy, but we can convert this energy, and we convert it to food. So when we do this, so once we've accomplished that minor hurdle, then we get into the cups of man, which are representative of us, and they assist us where the two cups work together. We are an emotional physical construct. And so we have a magnetical field and a gravitational field, and it is dictated to by our soul. And our soul has a reaction and representation within these cups, because we have a field of a magnetical gravitational relationship that is now having a welcoming for the soul. And when these souls come together, they create a dynamic field, and they create the star formation of souls. And you say, well, I can't see. Well, I can't see what causes the hole in my GANs, but it seems like there's nothing there, but we know better. So when we look at the stacker unit and what's going on, and we look at our bodies and we say, well, what's going on? Well, what's going on is we have a representation where we are in the horizontal life, and we work with the plants on this planet, which are in the vertical life, and we work with the other animals, which are also part of the horizontal life. This is part of our matter state and our existence, because these are all interrelationships of energy in motion. But the thing about the stacker unit, what it's showing you, when the higher energy feeds the lower energy, is there a restriction on what it feeds to? So it, as the highest energy, being the cup of soul at the top of the stacker unit, as it does its feeding, it feeds every single level, all other four cups of life in the stacker unit. How is it possible for one cup to feed the other four cups? And then can we go from there and say, well, would the second cup then feed the next three? And so, yeah, the answer is that yes. And this is what we'll talk about next week, because when you look at the whole stacker unit and how it resembles the spine and how it feeds us, it is feeding all 70 trillion cells in our body. And our body is kind of busy because it's kind of preoccupied with its physicality. So we also have a soul, which is connecting us to where we came from, isn't it? And we see that, you know, our soul is within our brain. And this is the origin, not only of ideas, but the origin of our existence on this planet. And who knows where we can go from here. But interestingly enough, if we can grow, and if we know that we can grow through the field rotation, and if this field rotation is going in different dimensions, and if we have a memory, if that growth is a memory, then when we talk about regeneration, we are talking about replication of what was there before, just like a photocopier. We have a memory of what was created there in the first place. If regeneration is the repair and restoration of physically damaged tissue, if that regeneration was based on this memory, then wasn't our birth based on the memory? We'll talk more about the supragranular layer next week, because this is what allows us to connect to the universe, but unfortunately, it also allows a delay in consequences. And this is where the abuse comes on this planet. So for simplicity, let's define plasma as a kind of energy state. And it's kind of important because when we look at our understanding of this universe, we're wondering, is it backwards or is it upside down? What is it? Well, the whole Earth is rotating on its x-axis. It is rotating around the y-axis, which goes through the poles, and the size of this Earth is the z-axis. And there are two hemispheres, and because they work together, they have to be opposite, because opposites attract. And this gives us the whole point. And so our understanding is limited by this failure to understand the flipping of the poles, which is rooted in our arrogance. And then it's time for us to be engaged. It is time for us to get wise. And as volunteers, we need to find more volunteers and more teachers, and accept that we need to get involved, because we are not just creatures of this earth, we are also space-bound creatures. In fact, our Earth is a satellite in space. Hello. And so we are creating a whole bunch of little satellites around this world right now to enhance your communication, and welcome everybody to the Kesh Foundation International Corona Team meeting. And we are looking forward to the establishment of our new facilities in Mexico and the US and others. And what we're really looking for, because there's more than just a physical and emotional satisfaction, we're looking for the emotional and physical restoration of our vitality, the life-giving energy that makes this planet work. And it all has to do with the plasma interaction, the pushing and the pulling of all the interactions. And it's not a fighting, it's just a repositioning. It's all based on Magravs conditions and how we exchange energy. And so one of the things that we have to understand is that we experience our beliefs. And if we open ourselves up to that of the universe, then we can receive the energy from the universe. And how we do that is by providing a pattern. You provide the pattern, you get the energy. We are just messengers right now. We are messengers of peace, and we are messengers of friendship, as opposed to what? This is why the Kesh Foundation Spaceship Institute is delivering this plasma science into the public domain, because the World Peace Treaty is not just for governments. The World Peace Treaty is for everybody on this planet, because the physical and emotional harmony and vitality is universal right of every individual on this planet. All the knowledge seekers become truth seekers, because the truth wins out. The question really comes down to, when will the truth seekers become the difference makers? And so as we remember our past and we understand how it's affected us, and we understand our before our past, in other words, our past is not limited from the time of birth, but even before the time of birth, then we understand that our dynamic plasma state is within us, but the universal language is throughout. And that's why the plasma science needs to be delivered in exchange for peace on Earth. Thank you all so much for listening. Mark, over to you.
Thank you very much, Alex. One of the things that stood out from your teaching here was the idea of, do you believe your experience or do you experience your belief? Now, one seems to be more in the matter state, which is limited, but the other way seems to be more in the plasmatic, by experiencing your beliefs. Now, I don't know if you meant it that way or not, but it just came to me that by using these systems, we may be able to experience our beliefs. So if I want to go to China, and I believe I want to go to China, I was seeing like something unclear, like on a television, but then all of a sudden it gets clearer that I am now experiencing my belief about being in China. And not so much in the physicality, but more on the soul level, where I was thinking it's safer for me to be there on the soul level to experience the maybe Beijing or Wuhan or one of these other places on the soul level. So it just sort of clicked with me to try and experience my belief more than believe my experience, because that to me is the matter state, but the other way is more of the plasmatic state. I don't know if you meant it that way, but that's the way I understood it, or it came across to me.
Well, if that's the way it came across, then this seminar was a success.
Yeah. And I think these systems are going to allow our enhancement of that. And maybe bringing the physicality along later is something else. I know the soul and the burst, and not every mother will be able to do this, but the soul manifesting first and then the physicality following. The physicality doesn't always have to follow. So we can explore the whole universe without any of the physicality following, just on the soul level.
That's two successes. Okay.
Okay.
This is looking good. You
Well,
learned
that's
two
just
lessons.
the way, yeah, that's just the way it seemed to dawn on me, or open my eyes a little bit to it, that we can actually do this. And the idea of believing your experience or experiencing your belief. And maybe I'll start on the planet first. I know with the vertical units, you'll be able to transfer the soul and then the physicality will follow. Mr. Kesh said, at least on this planet, to do these kind of things. But it's quite, I can see where you can explore the whole universe in that sort of manner, or in the universal unit, create the conditions of any
That's
point
three
in the
successes.
universe. Yeah, yeah. Now, Paul, thank you very much. For some reason, that stuck with me.
Well, that's all that is telling me is that I presented it correctly, because that was the intention.
And I don't want to take the microphone, but is there anyone else who's had any sort of thoughts or understanding that they'd like to share with us? I think I just shared one of mine. So please feel free. I'm sure there's something somebody wanted to say along the way. I hope you wrote it down. But yes, it seems like the dimension could open up very, again, but we need, there's something else we need, but I can really envision it working that way rather quickly and simply. It's not a beat over the head type of thing. But again, this heartbeat of slowing it down and speeding it up. I mean, Dan says he can get his heartbeat down to 30 or up to 300. I don't know how, maybe Dan, can you tell us how you move your heartbeat like that?
Up to the 200, not 3.
Okay, 200.
The 3 is wish. I make a limit. It need to training.
Well, how
What
did
I-
you start? How did you start practicing this? And why did you start practicing this?
It's the one reason for this is because I see it one show, TV show with about the apnea without breathing, no? It's called by breathing and by slowing down the heartbeat one time. And I notice when, for example, you are in love or you are feel good, you have a different emotion, you have different respiration pulse, let's say, frequency of breathing and heartbeat, because I don't know when you are take the pressure, it's I don't know how what is minimum, what is maximum, no, in the medical way. But when you count the pulse per minute in this manner, I with pulse per minute, no, when you're counting how fast you are breathing and how fast it's your heart it's pulsing. By breathing, by emotion, because on a certain level I make the exercise with the space between the breathing inhale and exhale. It's already Mr. Kesh in 2 or 4 lessons. It's already explained a little bit of breathing system. But I notice now when someone saying something good or something bad, it's like keep fire, not keep fire, take fire. In it's in 1 second, it's my heartbeat. It's accelerate from I don't know. It's 60, 16, 17 per minute. It's raised when I look because I have also this watch to the hand, and I count my heart beating. The first look when I feel this emotion, it's raising to 102 to 12, 19. After the other split of seconds, when I look again, it's passing to the 200 from one word. And I think in that moment, it's needed to relax, pass the emotion to me, not engage in the debate, and cooling down. I feeling when adrenaline is circulating in my vein, I feel it. I started a little bit of shaking, but in let's say in 1 minute, I I pass to the normality. Let's say by breathing, by relaxation, by emotion, by thinking, I relax. I slowing down the respiration, the heartbeat. Let's say it's all the time. It's exercise. It's like singing when you are rushing in the, let's say, one hill or mountain. You have one race to the mountain or to the stairs. You're starting to singing or talking. You remain without air. It's more or less one lesson of these professional singers, no? But I don't know anything about how it's training this person, canto or other type of exercise of respiration, breathing, and other things. It's only what I feel to do. And I remember when Mr. Cash saying, when you achieve the non-breathing, or non have the pulsation for a lot of time, you are talking. I'm not achieved that point yet, but I'm training. Okay, I make the break. I pass the stick to the others.
Yeah, I like to sort of stay on more of an even keel. When things go good, I don't get too excited. And when things go bad, I don't get too down about it. I like to keep at a very same level. Now, when you were doing these exercises, did you think about your soul at all, about exciting your soul so that the soul's heartbeat beats faster or stronger? Or was it just the physicality that you were
It's not
engaged
only
in?
the physicality, because I've imposed to don't breathing, and when you have the need to take air, your heart starting to pumping to. But this is one aspect. But I like very much when, for example, I take one memory from my one memory when I feel happy, or when I flying, or when I stay in to the mountain or the ocean. Different moment from my life, from time to time, when stay in the bed. I like very much passing to this memory. I learning also to the crying with the different eyes, eye, with both, let's say, to the command, no, by passing to this memory, to this emotion, or crying only with one eye. I choose left or right. It's like moving to the ear, no? You have the muscle to the ear, like a dog, no? It's or the horse. You see, it's moving a lot of ears, no? Regarding the noise. I move both, but without the control. Let's say, I try to control my muscle through my emotion. It's the same thing with the breathing and with the passing through the emotion to control the thing who is, let's say, uh, subconscious, or it's making without you according be conscious. Another time I put the question to Mr. Cash, how it's mentioned, how it's this experience. You are walking for 5 kilometers. You know the road. You close the eyes. You're sleeping, and you are rising after 5 kilometers in the point of in my grandmother house, let's say, because it's, and I don't know is the stuck because I don't remember how it's passing from point A to point B, but I sleeping, walking, in time of walking. Some experience, it's a little bit, I don't have the entire answer, but I searching a little bit with the help of Mr. Cash and other knowledge seekers. I achieved the answer to my question. And answering to your question, it's regarding to the emotion more for changing the heartbeat. And last time when, also today, when you're saying the video of Mr. Cage from Green 82, it's about the baby have the heartbeat, certain heartbeat, 1 to 120, and when you are in the more when you're growing, you are say thank you for let's say 16, and when she's saying it's the balance is needed, my heart to slow down to leave the space to the my soul. I first thought it's when we are sleeping, we are detached, which means the physical body, the soul of physicality. No, not the soul of physicality. Our body, it's in the bed, no, it's sleeping.
The physicality.
The physicality, heartbeat and breathing, it's slowing down when you sleep, and leave the space to the our soul to fly away. Let's say when you are awake with daily working, you have the accelerate heartbeat, no, in the traffic, in the working place, in the communication with others, in the verbal way, or putting the attention and intention in other things. We are distracted. Also, this is other game to have the attention in more place in the same time. I think in the, I don't know, it's only I say my experience. It's sometime I stay in, not in, I don't like to say contemplate the nature. Yes, I look in the sun, or I look in the flower, or I look in properly in the wall. It's what I feeling when I stay. What way is my perception? Have this moment, no? When we are busy with the working and listening to you and others, it's my emotion, no my. When I say my, like a soul, not individual, me. It's how I find in the other place with my attention, intention, listening or looking, but collegiate also in few dimensions, which means I working with the hands, with the head, I look what I do, but in the same time, I try to feel and seeing what you are doing, in what position you are, in what place in the space. It's when you're putting a lot of question, hoping you find the answer. I stop. This time I stop. I leave this space to speaking also to the others. I forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Did you ever notice though, I thought when the magnetic fields slow down or weaken, the heartbeat is slowing down, and then the soul can, let's say, emerge or expand its fields to go and interact wherever it wants to. But sometimes I've woken up from a dream, or what I thought was a dream or whatever. Maybe you're running from something or something happens, you wake up and your heartbeat is really beating fast. Has anyone experienced anything like that?
Yes, because in your dream, without waking, also when you are waking, yes, it's like running, and you have the fever, muscular fever from this manifestation in the sleep. Yes, we have also arrhythmia. She's saying when your heart is
Mhm.
like crazy, is running like a crazy, it's you are feeling and hearing in all your body this this heartbeat. In that moment, I like to train to slowing down, the control, to counting. Okay, I see Stefania how the plays up.
Right, so if we're gonna get processed through the universal unit per se, and we're gonna be returned to the point of inception in the womb of the mother, and we're being told that the baby's heartbeat is 100 or 120, does that mean our heartbeat will be up in that range as well? Because we'll be back at the point of inception, full of energy. Does that mean the heartbeat always, when you're generating a lot of energy, the heartbeat is beating faster? Go ahead, Stefania, please.
Can you hear me or not?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, because I have a bad reception. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Very clear.
Okay, yeah, no, I just want to add something with the heartbeat experience that what remind me when I think about emotion, because yeah, because we have to share this experience of the emotion, and so he told that tomorrow you're gonna.
Steph-
We
you're going in and out, Stefania.
found a better place.
Your connection, Stefania, is broken.
1 minute. 1 minute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, start from the beginning. You said sharing the experience of the Mojan.
Yes, because the only things I yes. So the only things I remember. So when Mr. Cash told us that we supposed to fly, no, the last was the last day, the last days of the program. So when we went in star formation, and if I remember, all this is what I remember. So as you said few times or many times the past, I was on the top of, and I was in the higher of, and then we had the other three motion around the table. So I was on the table and they were in different chair. I just remember, so Mr. Cash said as many times to not to think, because when you think, you are is not it, and so you have, like it told us many times in the public teach as well, to recall the feelings of love when you first met, the first love, or the love for the child, or that love is unconditional. That I just remember that the first things happened, the heartbeat changed. So and I remember become a little bit faster when you met your love, you're in love, you met someone you really love, your heartbeat. So definitely I remember that to be one of the first things I remember that happened. So I think from my experience of that experience, definitely the heartbeat. I mean, that was my experience, but it always felt like, like our body has got its own intelligence, no? When you're going to bed, you don't think what your liver does, or even during the day, you don't think all the things that happen in the body, you know, every month. You don't think all this, they just happened. It's like if this intelligence kick in, you know, we have this superior intelligence, the soul, I suppose, is my assumption. So the same when the way I remember it, it was like an engine that start up, and like a car that it's parked, and it's nothing works in the car, and then you put the key in the car, you turn the engine, and suddenly the car start working. No, it's something similar on that line, where it's like if the heartbeat trigger something that then, like when you turn the car, other something start to happen that was like a superior intelligence. I don't know how to say it, but something it's like things that you don't control but happening. So it was something like that. So there was like this this thing starting, yes, and basically yes, I just wanted to say that. But definitely the heartbeat, it was things start, the first things I remember that changed. Yeah. And then another things that Mr. Cash talked about, I think was 2 Thursdays ago, in the public teaching. It was he taught us about the tongue. We got a 2 tongue, one big one on the front, and we got a little one on the back. I remember, but this I remember it, but I don't know if I imagine it. I don't know if it was. I remember the other module making some. To me, it was like noise on the back of the throat, but I don't know if that. I don't know. I don't know if it was real or not, or but this is what I remember. So, but definitely the heartbeat, I remember, is the things that trigger it. This unconditional giving, or these feelings of when you meet your first lover. Definitely that it's, so if someone can recall that feelings, it's definitely the heart start to change suddenly. I just want to share this. But it felt like, something bigger took over. I don't know if it was all of us together plus something. I don't know. I really don't know. And but it was because I really feel this air coming underneath, you know, that made me really light, you know, because I remember my legs being light, you know, really becoming very light. So there were certain things that they did happen, and you know, and so it's like if it's something bigger. I don't know if we were all us together doing something that then triggers something else. Did what it make start this process, but the process take care of itself, you know. So like your heart in the night, you don't think about your heart beating in the night. This process has got its own intelligence. I don't know how to explain it, but this is my interpretation of things. I just want to share this.
Grazie, Stefania.
Hi, may I ask Mr. Alex something? I'd like to ask if I understood well. RNA is plasmatic and DNA is also plasmatic, or is something else? Both are infinite. One is before coming into life, RNA. DNA is during our life controlling physicality. And after our life, what's happened with both of them, RNA and DNA? So I have three questions. One is nature of both of them. Second, what's happened with the DNA after death, if it is infinite, and what happened with the RNA also after death?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Solomia.
Yes.
So the body is against spaceship. And a lot of people like to take things apart to figure out how things work. And you know, I'll give you the example of a TV set. I was watching a soccer game the other day, and you know, one wonders, if I took the TV set apart, would I find little soccer players inside? So the manifestation of the screen and the manifestation of the actual image of the game on the screen was a representation of the signal that was coming from the TV station. And the TV was basically a receiver that was manifesting this into the physicality of an image on the screen. So when we discuss dissection of the human body, what we're looking at is taking it apart and seeing the physical form artifacts. So we can, in fact, and how we know about the RNA and DNA is because we've actually seen it in its physical form, and we've been able to, you know, then do all sorts of gene therapies and gene mutilations, which we started with the DNA project and transition over to the RNA project, which is, you know, kind of what we're seeing today. So the manifestation of these forms are actually a physical form artifact of their existence, but they're not representative of how they work. And so this is the same, whether it's our blood or our organs or everything else. It isn't until they come in contact with the physicality and get exposed to the inertia of the environment where they break through the shielding, if you will, of the skin. So our skin is actually, the outer layer of our skin is the interaction, the physical interaction with our environment, whereas the other layers of the skin are part of our plasmatic environment. So our whole body is operating on a plasmatic basis. So that would be the answer to that question. And you know this is true because forensic detective work is able to identify DNA in a cadaver, and this is how they do body identification, and also how they've been able to corroborate evidence. So this DNA is long lasting after the expiration of the death. So even now, if there is a DNA, shall we say, a bank of all the data, and if they were to find a bone and get a DNA sample of it, first of all, they can tell if it's human or animal. And second of all, if they have a match in the bank, then they can tell who it is. So that's the answer to your second question. That's what happens to the DNA. My contention is that it is not possible for the DNA to not grow as a result of the experiences of the life process. And it is not possible, therefore, the RNA to not grow as a result of the life processes. So the plasmatic growth that we go through, which is really the manifestation of the emotion of presence as dictated to by the plasmatic existence within the range on this planet is part of the memory, and the memory is part of the growth. So this is reflected in the RNA DNA combination. And so when we're doing this discussion, the first thing we have to admit is that we were born, because that seems to be a problem for scientists, because, you know, they're all concerned with their participant observer relationship. Well, what happened, you know, before they were born? Where was that participant observer relationship? You know, and how do you explain that? Oh, well, they can't explain it. Well, the plasma science can explain it. And then what happens afterwards? And the spiritual teachers will tell us, well, the truthful spiritual teachers, I need to qualify that, will teach us that life is eternal, that souls are immortal. And how is that possible when the physicality is not? The physicality is is mortal, but when we say it's mortal, it has to do directly with the energy tap, the source of the energy and the tapping of that energy, and then the manifestation of that energy. So if we're living in a physical world only, and we are depressed by this physical world, which by rights we should be, because we're bombarded 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with terrible news. We need to understand that the universe is a benevolent place, and we have that as our foundation, then we'll never get depressed. The only depression, as far as I can see, is the continued delinquency of man on this planet. And a gradual change is has been tried and is really not possible. So most of what we're doing on this planet is a form of anarchism, is a form of anarchy, is a form of, I'm sorry, not an anarchism, it's a cataclysm, which is a sudden destruction. And for a lot of people to actually work, get educated and work in an industry to destroy others, well, what kind of business is that? What are you doing exactly? You're doing this for money? How do you sleep at night? You know, and is that why you went to school? And is that why you got educated? Is that why you're here? To destroy everything? So this is only possible because of the delayed consequences on this planet. And so the only way to reverse that is with an anarchism, which is a sudden uplifting. And that sudden uplifting, as discussed by spiritual teachers, is the elevation as discussed by Mr. Kesh. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you. Maybe, yes. I think that DNA can be, it is eternal, and it's
no, it cannot be eternal.
Cannot be?
No, because the DNA is a composition in the cell, and the cell and the DNA combination is a derivative of the amino acid. And the amino acid is a fingerprint of the interaction of the fields of inertia on this planet. So if you go to another planet, the fields of inertia are going to be different. And the manifestation in the physicality will also be different.
Different according to this planet.
No, according to the environment.
Yes.
But as it was tried to be explained, you know, we don't understand the difference between mass and weight. So the weight is actually the manifestation of the mass in motion. And the mass in motion, and the reason it's in motion is because it's a constituent of light. And light is a constituent of energy in motion. And the source of that light is the source of the soul energy. And that soul energy is, for us, within the soul of the planet, of the sun. And so our soul has arrived here due to the interaction of the soul of the sun and the soul of the earth. Okay, so that's how we navigated to here. But the question for all of us remains is, like, why did we come here? So one of the things that, you know, that I've had an opportunity to guide myself, and I will say through the first 40 years of my life, is I knew specifically what I didn't like. And the reason for that is because I was able to discern the difference of, you know, what works and what doesn't work. But I was never able to decide what I do like. In other words, I wasn't able to predict what I like, because, you know, when we were children in school, how many times did adults or teachers ask you, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And if you look at what you're doing today, whatever you're doing today, would that have been part of the answer that you gave when you were 8 years old or 12 years old or even 20 years old? Would you think that, you know, when you were 20, that you're doing what you're doing now? You know, it's inconceivable, because to ask a stupid question like that is because the answer to that question is based on a limited knowledge. And that limited knowledge is coming from a contrived question. And that is the educational system that we have basically teaches us to be academics and professionals within a field that is serving to the self-serving attitude on this planet. It doesn't teach us about the source of creation, and it doesn't teach us about energy and motion and the transmutation of energies. And it doesn't teach us anything more than our tiny little perfect world. And then when we look at a relationship between our tiny perfect world and the rest of the universe, and you say, wait a second, I've been robbed. I've been robbed of the knowledge of the rest of the universe. And you can't even call the police on that one.
But
I'm
the
gonna stop.
RNA is infinite, eternal.
Again, the RNA is a manifestation of the soul. You know, you keep going back to the same thing. The physical manifestation is a representation of the plasmatic reality. There is no rule that says the physical reality needs to be manifest. The plasmatic reality has to be. The plasmatic reality is a substructure for the physical reality. There can be no physical reality without a plasmatic reality.
This I know, but I want to know if my RNA will be eternal. This is a question. If we know.
I know it's a question, and the answer is no.
No.
Your soul is eternal.
Only the soul.
Well, yeah, that's you only that's all you get. You don't get any more. That's it. But you have to leave the bags at home. There's no church, no hospital in outer space. There's no educational system. You know, we have to know who taught the snail how to build his house. I mean, like, you try it. Go ahead, try it. I'll give you a week. See if you can do it. I don't, you know, it's unbelievable what these can do. You know, and especially when you consider that snails are hermaphrodites. So, you know, it doesn't even have a mommy or a daddy. It's unbelievable. So where does that knowledge come from? So it doesn't come from a physical blueprint, that's for sure. And actually, if he did have a physical blueprint, first of all, it would be underwater, so it would be soggy and wet. And second of all, he's a slimy little creature. So, you know, what a mess. So you understand, he is doing that from his plasmatic instruction. Where is that plasmatic instruction coming from? It is only manifesting in the snail's RNA DNA combination. So, but that's not where it comes from. That's where the physical manifestation is. What we're going to be talking about, and what Mr. Kesh has been talking about the last 4 weeks, is the source of this manifestation. This is where the new teaching is going.
I had to smile, Alex, when you talked about taking apart the television to see if the little men were in there playing soccer or not. And then I thought about Da Vinci, about him taking apart the body to find where the battery is or where the power source is within the body.
Yeah,
But he didn't
yeah.
find it either.
And then, you know, when you're done, you better put it back together again before your mother comes home.
Just on the lighter side for a minute.
If it's true.
But my RNA and my DNA from my past lives, I think that I keep it here on this earth because we have the same amino acid on this earth. And we can store from one life to another life and recycle. If you believe in this cycle of lives.
And if you came from another planet?
And this is a question. I don't know. I am asking you. If I knew, I didn't.
You should know. How can we know?
Yeah. Because you can even do many things without learning. You just remember from your past lives. And sometimes you travel where you have you had before houses or I don't know, and you remember. Oh, déjà vu. I remember I went here sometimes, but you know that in your life, this life, you never been, but you have been in other lives and you recognize some persons. I know you from somewhere. It's like this.
Or were you there in your dreams?
Yeah, and in dream also, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but so that connection is in your RNA. That's the
Yes.
point.
Yes.
But it's manifest in your RNA. It isn't the source.
I think the soul takes the soul of physicality with it, and it can manifest that RNA, DNA project any place, any time, if the conditions are right, but it's not going to be exactly what you look like now, but it's the same soul of physicality you have. So you won't look like this Salamia, but it will be the same soul. And that's what happened with Christ.
Well,
when Mary didn't recognize him in the tomb, he explained to her some stories because he didn't look like the Christ that she was married to or recognized. And he told her some stories and things, and then she knew. It's just like the apple tree. Every year you could see the same apple in the same position, but it's a different, slightly different than the one there last year. But it's the same soul of the tree manifesting that apple.
So I may need to be corrected on this particular point, but I don't think that necessarily the soul of physicality and the soul of man are eternal, because the soul of man is eternal, but the soul of physicality is manifest in this physicality based on the interaction of the field forces. What I'm trying to say is the souls are twins. So the soul of man is eternal, but the soul of physicality manifests itself in the field forces that are either plasmatic or through inertia or in gravitational state somehow. So that's where the changeability comes in, through that manifestation. And This is a subject. If you understand the term walk-in is someone who's able to walk into a body and take over that body. And there are numerous cases, especially if you've read Ruth Montgomery, and you find exactly that. People end up in divorce because someone has a near-death experience. And when they come out of that near-death experience, they're not the same soul. They're the same body, but not the same soul. And who would know better than this than the partner, be it husband or wife? And you know, I mean, that's one of the reasons that couples stay together, say for 50 years. They have this soul connection and this compatibility, and they love each other. So they have this connection. This is a third dimension connection of the two souls. But when you're used to a certain soul and conversing with a certain soul, and you look at that body and you say, well, you look like the person I married, but you're obviously not the person I married. And this has been recorded. And this is now an explanation of how it works. So we have different types of operations, if you will, field operations, where we have people who are physically dependent, which is most of us. Then you have other souls who migrate here and visit us in physicality. And then you have souls in the near field, and you have souls in the far field. And then you have souls who are in totally different areas. And the thing about it is that we're all somehow connected. We're all operating by the same rules. And it is to understand these rules that allows us to get out of our little tiny perfect world. And it's not tiny, it is tiny and it's not perfect. So let's forget that. But we can fix that, because the one law of the universe is the ethos of the universe. And that governs the transmission of energy that is in motion. So if we violate those laws, we basically create a barrier to that flow. And that's what we've done here. And because we can rob energy from others, then we think that's okay. But that all that is our own ignorance of understanding the difference between our physicality and our immortality. And that is the same thing as understanding the difference between the soul of man and the soul of the physicality, and the connection in between, which is the emotions of presence. So it is our dependence on the physicality, which is a representation of our emotion of presence, that is our driving force on this planet and is limiting our horizons. And we need to break through those horizons and understand that the universe is a benevolent place. And, my point today is that if we understand that the rotating field force is the creation of memory, and that memory is the basis of creation, and part of growth, and creation go hand in hand, then is our growth only limited to what we do here physically? And so that's impossible. If the mind is the builder, the soul feeds the mind, and what is the source to the soul, then our source of inspiration is what's guiding everything. So to say that our growth, our learning is limited by our physical knowledge that we get in between our birth and death is all that we get, that's very narrow-minded. And it's time for us to wake up to the reality. And there's nothing wrong. In fact, we should all be absolutely thrilled at the prospect of this happening, because it finally gives us a meaning to our life, more than just the the day-to-day drudgery that we go in, and the ongoing mental abuse that we all suffer under. Oh, I talked too much, eh, Mark?
No, not at all. So if we're taught that all souls are equal, is the soul of physicality equal to the soul of the man?
No.
The soul of physicality is, they do have a working relationship, uneasy as it is. But the soul has, the soul of physicality has enticed the soul to come in and has actually trapped it for a time. So I was just thinking about that. If all souls are equal, is the soul of physicality equal to the soul of the man? We're trying to get them to sort of blend together in a way.
In that regard, there can't be an equality because energy is always in motion. So you have to understand, according to Herman Weil, what he says is no two forms of energy can be in the same place at the same time. So one has to move before the other can arrive. In the process of the movement, there is an increase or a decrease in the energy within that field. It is this increase and decrease, and I hope you can hear me. It looks like my
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, so this increase and decrease in energy constituting the Maghreb condition is represented by the heartbeat. It is this flux that is going between the ebb and the flow. This, the energy has to move, the energy has to stop, and then the energy has to start to come back. So when you look at it, basically, it's not even a rotating field. It's flat because there has to be an outer perimeter. So if you're looking at it's a galaxy, and you see the physical rotation of the galaxy is on the x-axis, and in the center is the y-axis, and then how big it is the z-axis. But you could say that it looks like a pancake, okay? Because what you're looking at is the physical manifestation of the energy, how it flows, but the energy flows out not only out of the x-axis, but also out of the y-axis and also out of the z-axis. And this is where the new teaching is going. So this energy that's flowing is flowing in all three of those dimensions. And it is the collective of those three dimensions of the energy that's flowing that gives us our variety, because the source of these three is different. We're all different. All 7 billion of us are different. And thank God for that. Even twins are different. Okay, you can't be the same, but you can be similar. And in field strength, you can be complementary.
Stefania has her hand up. You don't have to raise your hand in this meeting. Just open your
sorry.
mouth, diplomatically for everyone, not just you.
Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we
Can you
hear
hear me?
you breathing. It's very clear.
Yeah. To me, it's like if emotion, through the emotion, because Mr. Cash said many times. I mean, this is what I understood of what Mr. Cash said. That the emotion is the residual of the interaction of the two fields. It's like if the emotion, through emotion, is the tools to tap into different size of containers. It's like if the boundary of these containers, like the body is a container, no, and the soul inside the body. Or like the sun inside the universe, and the universe is a container. It's like if each size of the container will, one called the body, one called the universe, and different things and different elements maybe have different size of this containers. And it like if it's through emotion, is a kind of tool to decide the specific containers, and that we could create condition of be able to, you know, choose. This all assumption, right? This is what I sometimes, you know, just something that I thought, but it doesn't mean is what I start to think sometimes. So
I wish you wouldn't have said that. I think you were going perfectly down the center of the road. Okay. Now you're heading towards the ditch.
I know. Yeah.
You need to have
another container.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Right. You need to have confidence. You need to have confidence and trust in yourself, because you have more knowledge than you give yourself credit for.
Yeah, but I don't want to also assume, you know, it's one of those things.
No, we're not assuming anything. We're discussing and based on the knowledge. So it becomes a discovery, you know, and if the premise is wrong, then that discovery is false.
Yeah, yes, yeah, you're right. You're right.
So everything that you're saying has been has never been disproven in that regard. So your concept of what is going on is excellent. Now, can we paraphrase that into our man-made language? So and how do we understand words which are, you know, the lowest form of energy, where ideas are a higher form of energy? So you're trying to convey an idea which is higher with words which are lower. And this is our challenge. But you're doing great.
Yeah, thank you. So it's like you know, you got two different force, and then somehow you can flick from one to the other. So for example, if you want to expand the soul, for example, Mr. Cash always said as many times, this is what I understood from what Mr. Cash said, that you know, unconditional love but from unconditional love, your soul get expanded. So we know that we have a tool here, where through recalling, because emotion change structure. So recalling the feelings of falling in love, this unconditional love, it will change the boundaries, because the soul will expand, and as the soul expand, we you know, we can dip into the you know, we have you know, we have a soul life, soul of the man, and then and if the soul expand, means that the physical soul is inside, and the man of the soul is outside now. You can see that, you can say this, the spacecraft, no, our spacecraft, and then maybe somehow we can do the reverse. So maybe we have to find a way then to trigger the other way around, to expand through certain emotion. Maybe again you can change the container again, so it will be emotion, specific emotion, they will trigger you being in a different situation. So maybe where we are now, where maybe where the soul now is into the body, and the physical soul. I don't know if it's correct to say it's bigger, but they are reversed. So
Right.
yeah.
If you can excite the soul to take over the physicality, guess who's on the inside now? Guess who's dictating where to go and what to do and who you want to see? The soul of physicality.
Oh no, it's Stefania.
No,
But
it's Mark.
maybe but maybe this is also how we're gonna learn how to materialize things, you know, by because maybe everything's got size, you know, so every size is referring to a certain manifestation of certain physical things. I don't know, I'm just but there is definitely the emotion is the trigger, and maybe the emotion
And maybe the Mojan, was she ready to say motion or Mojan?
the two, I don't know, I'm lost. But definitely we have a tool like intention, you know, we have the capability, maybe that's why we're here in Earth, to have a taste of the feelings, and then we're gonna be able to recall them when we're traveling in space. I don't, you know, actually, maybe, yeah. Or yeah, I don't know if I've been clear, but definitely the sensation or the feelings is the one to because that is because I remember very well Mr. Cash in the Moja said to us, you have to recall the feelings of when you fall in love the first time. My experience of the day that you know, we told this what happened to Mr. Cash. He didn't expand on that. He just said that I had the fears because I started rotating rotating fast. But he said if you'd ever been straight, you start to tilting because you had fear. So, but I do remember that I do remember to have triggered that feelings of that conditional love, and I don't know, maybe, you know, just and I remember this heartbeat changing, you know. So I'm sure that you know, that we can do this when learn better and more consciously, no. You know, like when you do in the gym, you train to do something, and then become second nature. Like Mr. Cash, actually, Mr. Cash saying in the past is like be like actors, you know, the actors that can recall feeling much
Yeah.
easier.
Start
Yeah.
crying.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think, yeah. So definitely the yeah. So you understood. Yeah. So yeah. So I don't think we don't die. I don't think we died. It's not question of dying or dying. It's question to me which feelings can you recall, you know, through your intention.
Yeah, and if you're going to ride your soul across the universe, then those roles have to be reversed, where the soul of the man is on the outside and the soul of physicality is on the inside. That becomes the director now, as I understand it. And if you want to manifest, if the conditions are right, you can manifest the physicality if the conditions are right, or it may make another physicality depending on the conditions and not look like the man, but you could manifest the physicality. And you might be a blob or have 8 legs or whatever. But I think it's this role reversal in a way where the soul gets to encompass the physicality. And now the soul of the physicality becomes the center and rides the soul of the man across the universe. Just my understanding at this point in time.
So it's where you tap into. Mr. Cash also said many times, it just depends where you tap into. So you can tap into the yeah, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I think we have a couple microphones open, Gail and Ed.
Did I
I
open
was
it?
just,
Go ahead.
No.
so I had a thought that while I was listening to Stefania, Mr. Cash in the last teaching, he taught us that man is always thinking about trying to expand his soul and working from the outside in, so to speak, and that the key is inside, that the key to go inward, and it's the inside that controls the outside, even with the expansion of the soul. And when Stefania was talking about the emotion as the trigger, I had a thought that maybe as we get go inward and we learn to feel a pure and purer emotion, the emotions that are closer to the soul, that is the key to the expansion of the soul. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. That was a thought I had while I was listening to Stefania.
I'd like
Um,
to add.
I just
I thought-
wanted to say that I'm so confused now because I think what Ed was just saying, something that Mr. Kesh just said about the soul being in the middle. And I don't know, it's almost like opposite to what was being said before. So I don't know what was going on around that. I'm not sure. And then the other thing is, it's about, you know, when you're exercising and you're very strong and you're fit physically, in the physicality, your heart rate will naturally be slow, and it because you're so fit. So if you're weak, then your heart rate will definitely be higher because you'll have to work harder physically in the physicality. So what is Mr. Kesh speaking about here? Is it something other than physicality that we're supposed to be influencing? Because it's very confusing. I know my heart rate is very, very low when I'm in top shape, and I can climb a mountain and do whatever, and it hardly goes up. But when you're out of shape, then, you know, your heart rate does vary. So what is it that we have to do besides become weak physically to get our heart rate to increase, if that's what we're supposed to do? And then there was something else. If I can just find it here. By the way, I'm sorry, I just dropped something when my mic was open and I was cursing because it's all over the place. And then, yeah, that was what I was trying to think of. Is it our belief, our intention that's supposed to make the heart rate change, the emotion that Stefania was talking about? Yeah, I think that was it for me. I'll think of something else later on. So the soul in the middle was something that Mr. Kesh talked about, and I'm not entirely sure of the context. So if you can think about it, I would love to know. Oh, yes, I just thought of it. RNA and DNA. In one of our classes, we were talking about DNA being like, let's say the protein or the amino acids on the planet, and your family would have a certain DNA, and your little debit card will go to the machine and you'll be taking out your RNA, which is going to make you out of the ancestral DNA. That's my other thought. Okay, I'm finished. Thanks.
Hello.
Go right ahead.
I want to share my experience now. I'm Selena from Georgia, USA. So I have a few experience. My first experience, I think so 4 or 5 years ago. I'm following Mr. Kesh a long time. I'm watching him YouTube, almost all teaching. So I made a lot of games. All over the place, I have a lot of games in my home. So when the corona didn't started that time, so school was regular. So in the morning time, used to the bus was in my complex, in the main gate. So at the morning time, I don't brush my teeth, I don't comb my hair. I woke up, get ready, and take my daughter in the bus stop. I drive, and then I take my daughter to the bus stop, and then when she go to the bus, and then I come back, and then next I go to bed again. So that day was the same thing. So I came back from her bus stop, and then my husband is still sleeping in the bed in the morning time, early in the morning. So when I saw his sleeping, so I took a pillow and I try to sleep next to him. So my eye is closed, but I didn't put my head in the pillow yet, but I try to sleep. I just kneel down a little bit, and suddenly I feel I have opened 3 eyes in my side eyes, in the right side. So it's like TV channel. And then right away, I get inside one channel. It's like it's like an eye. I went to the eye, inside the eye. The 3 eye, the first eye I opened inside. So that time I saw, it's like a Chinese cooking school. The teacher is teaching a few students, like 7, 8 students. And then the teacher is teaching something saying, but I didn't hear what he's saying. But I saw he's moving his lips, and he's showing in something in the table, and all the students is there watching that. But my level was, I'm looking at like their knee level, not their level, but I'm looking the whole picture from their knee level. So I just saw their upper body. So right away I came back. I came back, and I was so scared, and I jumped from the bed, and then I was running whole house in the stairs. I thought I have some problem in my head. So I didn't tell my husband. Maybe he's gonna say something or feel still. I don't know. I didn't say him right away. So 2, 3 days I was like crazy. I was thinking, what just happened? Where did I go? I never had those kinds of stuff. So after that was my first experience. And then after that, I had more. At that time, I didn't try to go anywhere. Just I went there. And I saw my few life, another experience. That time, sometimes I do meditation, sometimes very little. I don't do that much, but I most time I hear, what is that, theta brainwave, and then some kinds of vibration noise. All the time I put in my head, in the headphone. So I stay different way. I always try to stay calm and good mood. So, and at that time it's happened, I did meditation in the little bit in the before sleeping, and then like sleeping and oak. Between that level, I saw my 5 lives. One is I am in the under the sea. One time, I saw 3 men, three country maybe, 3 different men. And then another one I saw like a 12 years child, 12, 13 years child, son, man, boy. And then another one I saw that day. No, last one I saw in the under the sea. The first one, man, 3 men, and then fourth one is the 12 years boy, and then 5th one was under the sea. So that was my next experience. It's like I saw that way, like a movie. I saw my one life. I'm doing something like middle-aged man working. And then next one, little bit younger. Then another one is like a California hillside area, those kinds of area. And then what is that? I'm impressing maybe some lady or something. That one. And then the boy was, I think so, is like a Brazilian country, some I can explain a different country, but the last one under the sea. So those time I don't try to go anywhere, I just relax, and I didn't see my heart goes faster. It didn't happen. And sometime other few experience I had. I'm trying to say, everybody is saying when they get the experience, they have a heart, their heart is faster, but I didn't have that. And then two time it's like evening time, like 9-10 o'clock. My husband came from work, and I have a bedroom. In the bedroom, I have a small TV. So when we after the dinner, and he went to the bed and lay down and watched the TV. So I'm laying back close to him, laying back, but I'm not watching the TV, but he is watching TV. But suddenly I'm hearing what the TV saying, and I'm hearing what my husband making noise or something, everything. I'm just off. But suddenly I thought I'm seeing inside between my eye, I saw like what is old days binocular, the long. Did you see the Tarzan or something, like one pipe, like big binocular, those kinds of stuff? I thought I went inside the binocular, like those kinds of pipe, and then went other place, and that is like some kinds of archaeologists. Sometimes they found the broken stuff in the middle of the desert or somewhere, like those kinds of stuff. 2 days it's happened that way. And but I'm saying something to my husband, and that was strange. I don't know, that is different kinds of look, different kinds of vision. So I see a lot of stuff different way. I don't know what is that, and I can explain, but a lot of stuff happened. And I saw myself in the sky too, in the clouds. I just want to share a little bit, so that's it.
Thank you, Selina, for your sharing.
Hi, everyone. Good day, good evening. Do you hear me, guys?
Yes, Jalal.
Yes.
Nice to hear you, Joel.
Hi, Alex. Thank you. I have a question for you guys. And I would like to add something to the knowledge here. I think from the way we hear the knowledge seeker speaking, there is something is missing. And I would like to refer to that. What is the opposite of light?
Dark.
Okay. What is the opposite of joy?
Sad.
You see the knowledge which the man gathered due to the environment. And in our environment, we have the rotation of the earth, and we have daylight and night. So always there is something opposite in reality, like positive and negative. And unless we get out of this part of the opposite of negative, it is positive, and the opposite of positive is negative, we cannot change the environment to change the soul of the man.
What is the opposite of magnetical?
More magnetic. What is the opposite of happiness? More happiness. What is the opposite of joy? More joyful. What is the opposite of love? More love. What is the opposite of light? More light. Why don't we change the reference point of thinking? And I think we have the knowledge, and we have the the tools to bring us there. Because if you stay in this circle of positive and negative, you will never change that. It is, it is based of losing. And losing, that means fear. And whatever comes out of fear will never build. If you know, you will never lose. So why there is fear if there is no lose? Then whatever you do, it is good, because you are doing good. And what is the opposite of good? More goodness. I think we need to see it from this, this knowledge.
I understood you, Jalal. I want to say something about that. Can I?
Yes, of course.
I had an experience I already shared with you guys a few weeks ago, I think so. I had what is that? Is like a dream kinds of night. Whole night I was like woke and dream type situation. So early in the morning, when I woke up in the morning, so I sat down in the bed and I looked in my feet, and I felt that my feet it is my feet. I felt like I didn't had any feet like 1,000 years. It is the first time I'm seeing my feet. And then it is so beautiful. And half an hour, I just look at my feet. And then my hand, I can explain the happiness, and I can explain what did I feel. But it is out of world. It's like a heaven. I can say just heaven. I am in middle age. I had a lot of good experience, a good happiness, and a lot of stuff. So I know what is happiness, but I never felt like that. It was my first time, and I can trade everything because of if somebody say, oh, you can get that happiness, and I can trade everything for that happiness, like that kinds of happiness. I don't have any word. So that time now I understood what you are talking about. We are happy, we have everything, but we can do more than that. We can get more than that. Whatever it was, I never experienced before, but I know now we can get those kinds of happiness. It is from where I don't know, but it is something different, totally different. So maybe we are going that way. Everybody is going that way. Yeah, I want to say that one. That is all. That's why I say I understood what are you talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Selena.
Thank you very much. Jalal, so the opposite of love is?
More love.
Exactly. So hate doesn't exist.
Never.
And so you hit the nail right on the head. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. By the way, if you take, it is not in reality, it's not negative, because you can take a suffer from someone, you can take illness from someone, you can take sadness from someone. Convert. We are a converter. No more, no less. We convert from lower to higher, higher to lower. But why don't we all in goodness? There is no such a thing as bad. There is no such a thing losing. It's due to the strength you gathered. You interact. Absolutely, no more, no less. As Mr. Cass said once, he said, I build a UFO, but I cannot say, yeah, you can come in and you can come in, because the door will not open for you. The door is not, you will not see it. And even the spaceship, you will not see it. Unless you are in this strength of field, you can enter it. So it's not me who choose who is coming and who is going and who is yet. No, it is your strength. So the same thing, what is happening, and you will gather this strength. You can gather it in one day. You can gather it in 1 million years, and in all sort of forms of being, a kind being, whatever it is. Because if you cannot gather it today or understand it today, you will have the chance to live thousands of years in other forms, because due to your strength, the soul strength, you will manifest. If you have a soul strength of, let's say, a plant, you will never manifest yourself as a man, because it's lower or higher soul strength. So you will never manifest yourself in this condition. As he said, when you go another planet, another universe, it's due to your strength and the condition and the environment, you will manifest yourself. So you are the important one, and you choose. You have the chance to choose. And one thing prevent us from that choosing, because we have fear of losing. Believe me, it's all that. We have fear of losing. Even we know how we do it, even we have the tools to do, even we have the knowledge to do, but we prefer someone to do it before us. Then okay, he done it. He can do it. Okay, there is no fear. We jump in it. But in reality, we all can do it, and you only in the end you will lose your you will use, not lose, sorry, you will use your reactors, what you are uh, have already, and you play with it. That's all. As Dan is using his reactors to change the heartbeat, you can do it also. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Alex, for your teaching.
I'd like to add something. Can you hear me?
Either, please go ahead.
Yes, from everything that I'm hearing, I keep thinking of the word memory lane, and I'm kind of going through that right now, going to my my childhood home and taking care of a sick stepmother. And as every corner I turn in this town, I have a memory and an emotion with it, and I drift off. And if we could capture those emotions, you know, through intention and GANs, maybe even for healing, or because we're damaged, you know, and we have to realize, definitely as I go out there, I'm afraid of losing, and I've lost so many. But with this knowledge too, it helps to come to another realization. But what is the purpose of the memory lane and the emotions? And there has to be a bank, right? Storage and much more. Or we can tap into other people's storages sort of vicariously through their visions or words, you know, and maybe even get, you know, grab that emotion like a roller coaster, you know, you've been on, and if you watch it on a show, you can get that emotion again. It's there's only so many emotions, but love, there's many different types of love, and you know, to what use will each one of those take us to our love and memory? Just putting that out there. Memory lane.
No, that's an important thought, because as I said, it's very easy for us to decide what we don't want to do, because that's one of the things that memory lane teaches us, to say, oh, you know, I did that and I can't believe I did that, you know, and that was a bad experience, and I'm really sorry that I went through that. So the first thing really is you have to learn that you don't need to carry that baggage. So the whole purpose of that was to learn and to use that to your benefit so that you can make a better decision in the future. And so this is one of the beauties of the emotion of presence, is because you can look in the past and you can decide how you feel towards that experience in the past, because you had an experience and you perhaps believe that experience to be bad. But what would happen if you took that same experience and you believed that it was good? In other words, a learning experience. And at least one of the things that you can say at this point in time is, well, you know, you didn't, you survived it.
Well, that's going. And I love them even more so as time goes by, and feel them even more so because they are my memories, and I had emotion with that and memory with it.
Yeah, but that edifies you, right? That's what you build yourself on, so that you have a grounding, and you can look forward, and you see that the thing is, you're looking forward with more of a purpose as opposed to drifting. Most of us are drifting because we don't take comprehensive responsibility for our actions, because we're playing the blame game. We blame someone else. And how can you blame someone else when your physical reality is dependent on your plasmatic reality? So it's not dependent on someone else's plasmatic reality. What you have the right to do is to choose whether you absorb it or whether you put a barrier up for that. That you do have a choice to do. So, well, you are what you give your time and attention to. And if you choose to work for nefarious means, well, guess what? That'll be part and parcel of your life. So, and you can't blame anyone else but yourself for that. So this blame is kind of an inconvenience thing. So not to worry about the blame, but use it as a way of edifying yourself, learning, and understand that life is for learning, and that's the whole purpose for it. Some of us are harder to teach, and I know it was very hard to teach. But on the other hand, I'm very, very grateful for what I did learn. And so, at my age, I'm going through memory lane also, and that was one of the things I was having trouble with the last 48 hours. I was going to do a class on memory, and then I started exploring my memory, and oh, gee, did I ever do that? And, oh, I remember when that happened, and you have all these bad things that happen, and I'm saying, well, I'm so glad it's in the past. I don't have to confront those things today, but I'm stronger for it. I'm wiser for it. And how can I convey that? So one of the things that I could do is I could share those with you. And what benefit would that be? When you look at through history, you don't go through all the details. It's so funny. We were so selective in our history. I remember being in grade 4, and the question on the exam was, when did Christopher Columbus discover America? And so that was, etched in our memory. That was so funny because I wrote 1942. And that was the only wrong answer that I got. And I wasn't being smart. I just went through the whole test, and I was the first to finish. And I guess at my speed, I inverted the numbers, and I still passed. And it was so funny because the teacher says, well, you got all the numbers right. You just got them in the wrong order. But, going back to the original question, if Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492, then whose viewpoint are we talking about? So we're obviously talking about Christopher Columbus's viewpoint, because when he discovered America, there were people there. And I think what constitutes discovery is when you go someplace and it's new. And obviously it was new to Columbus only. And so this is the running joke, and when someone makes a discovery and you say, oh, Christopher Columbus just made a discovery. Yeah, something that everybody knows except you. And so we're in this position now where we all know because it's in our memory bank. And do we want to tap into it, like you said? And one of the things that stops us from tapping into it is this fear, like you said, and it's true. Because, we don't want to lose. Well, you can't lose because there's no such thing as negative energy. There's no such thing as bad energy. Positive and negative energy is the direction of motion. Energy is, love is, life is, the universe is, and we is part of it. And, we didn't come here to suffer or to be abused by someone else. And least of all, by ourselves. We don't want to be abused by ourselves. So our souls will not carry any abuse. We carry that abuse in our emotion and our physicality. And so if we can alter our understanding of our emotion and our physicality and the relationship it has to our soul, then all of a sudden our tiny little perfect world opens up. The horizon just kind of lifts up. and you kind of get a chance to look out and say, well, you know, if you have any doubt about this, think about what it was like before you found out about the plasma science. Imagine how your life would be now without the plasma science. Thinking that, well, you know, get a job, you work, and then you die. You know, oh, well, that's your life. Oh, and you know, would you enjoy that? Or how about now? You know, we can explore this planet, we can explore the universe, we can make people happy, we can bring heaven into our environment all the time, because heaven is really just a state of mind, and that state of mind is a representation of our soul, and our soul will never lie. Okay, because our soul does not operate by the delaying consequences on this planet, which is a manifestation of the physicality. Our soul operates by the ethos of the universe, which is eternal, and the connection of our soul to the connection of the creator is comprehensive, because the capability of the creator has passed that on to us so that we can be a co-creator. And that's not an insult to the creator. What is an insult to the creator is, oh, you created something bad. Well, you go and tell him. You go and tell him that hey, how could you do that? You created something bad. The creator never created anything bad, you know. But if you decide that every problem is a nail, and you have a computer, someone gives you a computer and you say, oh, great, I can now get that nail into the wood. You know, that's just plain stupid. That's just a plain misunderstanding of the resources. So we have new resources, and so the right resources need to be used in the right places. So we just need to sort all of that out. And that's part of the learning that we're going through. And we're trying to connect a bridge between the old knowledge and the new knowledge. And as it's a difficult chore, because what we're trying to do in short order is what we've been not doing for thousands of years. So there's a challenge there, but we can do that by elevating our souls and operating in a higher energy level, and we can do that. And the GANS is allowing us to do that. And so we can do that individually within our community, and then we can do that collectively by building the peace stone. And there's more that follows. This is just the beginning. And so it's a wonderful journey that we've started, and there's no reason to get off this train, because this train is the right train. Thanks so much, Ken. Mark, I'm going to pass this over to you. I want to thank everybody for allowing me to present today. And I thank everybody for joining us today. A wonderful journey. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. And I want to thank you all for devoting the time and attention to being here and bringing peace and understanding and harmony to this planet. So,
okay, Alex, thank you very much. I would like to ask another question, if you allow me.
Please go ahead.
How many of you knowledge seekers done the experiment of the orange and the cup? Who done the experiment? Raise his hand, please. Where is the hand? There's no hand here. Okay, it happened. I don't have that.
Where did the hand go? How did Stefania raise her hand? Wait a minute.
Jefferson's got one.
Jalal,
Yeah.
I forgot to ask you, where do I find the best instructions for that particular experiment?
Okay. Tomorrow, come to the teaching. I will teach you.
Okay. I'm so sorry, but I did do a whole lot of things today. Like you said, a little bit here, a little bit there. I'll get there. Thank you very much. And Alex, thank you. But I still have a question about soul being inside, not in prison, but the center and the action for everything.
Okay.
I'm
You know,
sure.
Gail,
Mhm.
in reality, if you done the experiment, you will understand it very beautifully what you ask now. No,
Okay.
no, really, in reality, you will understand it and you will laugh your head.
I hope so. All right. And do you think that being perfectly happy is possible if you don't have bad things happening now and then to teach you? Just a thought.
Okay, just get out from this circle of positive, negative.
Okay.
Just go what you will never lose anything. So when you don't lose, what will be? What is the other side? If you don't
More
lose
positive.
anything, so
Yeah.
so everything happens. Everything happens. It you know it's already decided by the soul for thousands of years. So why do you don't have a real faith, a real belief that your soul wants you to be happy, whatever what matter
Mm,
happens.
okay. All right. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And then once when this virus came out, Mr. Cass said a word, and it is reality. And this is even an old teaching about the viruses. Why the viruses catch someone from 10 people, 3 people, or 4 people catch the virus, and the 5 or 6 people they do not catch it. Let's say like influenza or a cold or something.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because some of them, their strength, it's above the strength of this virus.
Okay.
So they will never interact with it. It is only what is happening. You say this is bad. It is only when you are like two plasmas, similar plasmas interact or semi-similar. Like it's you are little bit above this virus or little bit below this virus, so you will interact with it. Then they will be give and take. But if you are really above it in order of magnitude, nothing will come to you, nothing, because it is not in your strength.
Okay.
So it's the same thing. If you think this is a bad,
Also,
so you will be in this position which is interact with the bad because you are a magnet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I don't usually get sick,
also,
so
I think, uh, we all going towards the creator, no? So all the Rome take to Rome, to Rome's. All the roads take to Rome.
Why you go to
So
the
we all
you are the
elevated,
creator.
no? It's just yeah, we are the creator. Yes.
So you
It's
are the
just
creator. We
it's just
all will come to
yeah,
you.
very, yeah. I'm the creator. I am the creator. It's just the way you do it. So
You made the mess.
basically, it's like sometimes
Oh dear.
sometimes it's like
My dear
it's
Stefania,
like
you know, Stefania, you remind me something. You are the fault. Until now, we didn't achieve lift. You are the fault.
I remember also when Mr. Cash said we can turn, this transmutation of the element, when you turn weakness to strength, or we all, how you say, evolving, learning. Yeah, at the same time, we are the creator. It's the two happening in the same time, but at the same time, there is not two, there is one. What I'm saying is, it's like even when Mr. Cash said that the virus is a good things because we all elevating, so we all are getting better. We all or we're already there, or you just the way you wanna put it. What I'm saying is, like you said, there is no bad. There is no bad.
Stefania, can I ask you
We
something,
created
please?
it, but that is also part of the. But that is also part of the creation, in the sense that, if you learn, it's just different way of learning. I mean, I don't know how to say, but is even the fact that we, like when Mr. Cash said, fear we invented, no, still something that we created. It's like what you do with it. So if you learn from it, it's just different road. Like he said, you want to go through the cross, or you want to go without the cross. So you want to go with the suffering, or you want to go without suffering. It's just or you want to go with a donkey, or you want to go with Ferrari. It's all because we are the creator. We choose in which road to take, or what to be, something like that. I wanted to say.
Can I ask you a question, Stefania?
Yeah.
When you are sitting with the three guys, the last day of teaching of Mojan, where you was your position? In which let's say you are four, so you have four levels, and you said one is a little bit sitting above the other. Which one you were?
I was the one on the top, the one higher on the table.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But you see, there something started, and there something finished. When it started, there was, there was the heartbeat creation. They put in the feelings of unconditional love. When everything stopped, is when I put the feelings of fear. So even there, I had the control, not control, but I had say. I had a say. So even there, I was the creator, or we were the creator of that situation. So it's ironic, we, something has started, something is finished, and these two feelings, who something started and something's finished. Both, it what how can I say that? In one way, we have the control, but I don't, because the moment I maybe I did replicate the feelings of love or unconditional love, something start, the heart start to. Then when I had the fear, something is finished. Everything went down. like a machine turning off. So that still like in this experience, even though it was not successful, someone can say, maybe I remember when I finished this experience, I really felt very bad because I thought I had fell. And then in the pause, after the motion, I thought a lot about what happened, and then now become a good experience, you know. So it's all, we all this, maybe this is the transmutation of the element, I don't know, but we all can change in correlation to I don't know if it's correct, to what you want to see, I don't know, but there where I see the power that we have as creators, because you can create your own hell or your own paradise. Yeah, but of
So
course.
why you think it's bad in this
No,
moment?
I don't
No,
think bad. I don't
in
think it's
this
bad
moment,
because
it have a
I
lot
don't
of
think it's
teaching.
bad.
You know, it is more. You earn more than what you would think you lost.
I don't think it's bad because again, it's up to us where we tap into. No, so if you tap into the fact you're the creator, it's not bad because you can you consider the learning out of it. You know, so it's which that's it's where you make the connection to.
You know,
I don't know if I
you know,
express
Stefania.
myself.
You know something, Stefania. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
knowledge seekers, they do not realize how much you give time and money and effort. I'm speaking about you, to experience only this moment, and you teach it out for the people. If the people knows how much energy in all aspects you give and how much energy you receive to deal with, and you give it to the knowledge seekers to learn from it, my God, it is a lot. And really, thank you, Stefania. And of course, thanks to Mr. Cash, because as the infinity loop, it is priceless. So even this knowledge, it's more in order of magnitude. It's also priceless.
Thank you. And thank you. I just share the knowledge. I mean, Mr. Cash was very clear when we finish the motion. He said, now going to teach your experience, of course, what we experience. So I always felt like I should share this because it's what I experience, and that's it. Thank you for you to listen.
Can I share something?
Yes, you don't have to ask.
I think everything is happen. It's like a state of mind. I had experience like I'm flying in the cloud. I think I am the part of the cloud. I am moving first, and then all cloud moving with me, and then it's the moving round and round. So that time I was a different state of mind. And then when I thought, oh my God, I'm moving this way, all cloud moving with me, and under the earth there is a people, house, and everything will be destroyed. A lot of people will be killed, and then a lot of house will be destroyed. when I thought that, right away I came back. When I think about those kinds of stuff, I can stay that place. I go a lot of places, but when I think different, like a earthly thought, right away they I don't know, maybe I feel somebody just take me back. I feel that way, and I now understand it is just a state of mind. When we stay fearless and then free and then happy, and it's happened. And then when we thought like a fear approach, and then those kinds of stuff come, and then we come back. We can stay that place. It's our soul goes everywhere. I had a few experience, and sometimes I get mad with me why I thought that thing. When I do, I want to stay more, but I can't. When I thought, right away I have to come back. They send me back. I feel right away I'm back, and I feel very sad after that. It's like a state of mind. Do you understand? Yeah, that.
If I responsible to give you this experience back, and I see you sad, that mean I will never put you in this condition again. So,
but I go.
But
I
wait,
go.
wait. Change the position. Be happy, and emit happiness. You will receive it again in another level. You see, like a mother and a child. If the mother notice that the child is not happy in what she give or what she put to him, she will try never to put him in this position again. Although in the beginning, as you said, you was happy, and when you wake up, you was very sad. And in the soul level, there is no negative, there is no positive. That means in the soul level, there is no sleep position and awaken position. It's working all the time.
Yeah, I understood that. I understand that, but I can, when I was that state, that mood, I don't know how come the thought come, and when that thought come, I am not there. That is the thing. I don't want to think that way. I don't think about what is going on in my, but I can't. It just come, and then I feel like somebody just kicked me out from that state and throw me.
You know, in a way, I think the women have the ability to achieve this elevation. Really, in reality, this elevation and connecting to the soul very easy than the man, because about more than 90% the people which I was connect with, and they speak in this level, even before 30-40 years, they were females. So I think, as Stefania said, she was in the first position, and we know what is the first position in the star formation, and the heaviest in this way. We understand if we convert it to the knowledge of the plasma and the ganses in this way. Thank you for sharing, Shelena.
Thank you.
I see Mr. Cash a lot of times he's out and in, and sometimes there is no microphone. Mr. Cash, if you can speak, Is there something wrong with the communication?
No, good evening. It's just that we have a weak reception tonight, but it's fixed now. It should be okay.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kaj. Good to hear you.
And nice to be here.
Can I address something about Stefania? Stefania, the wonderful thing is that you had this experience, and by sharing this experience, you can bring it further. You can bring it forth by teaching us what you have learned from it, and by us hearing it, we can add to that. And I think that is the beautiful thing. As in the moment when you share it, then you multiply it, and then your experience becomes common, becomes more than only your experience. And that is maybe also the secret of what we are doing here, that we learn how to share with each other so that it is a collective advancement, a collective awakening, a collective furthering. And that is maybe the most beautiful thing that we can have together. And thank you for sharing, Stefania, and thanks for sharing, everyone.
You're so right. And then thank you for that comment, because that's one of the things that people who don't do teaching are missing. And it's the experience of interacting with the students. And this interaction is not just on a physical or a vocal way. It's not even just on a mental way. And it is very, very rewarding. That experience, interacting with the students, is extremely rewarding. But the other thing that is probably most misunderstood is the benefit that the teacher gets, because okay, well, let me just use my own example. I don't have a script, and I don't have a book to follow. So I'm just using the PowerPoints to be able to give me a guide to at least have a train of thought that makes some sense. And so that I'm using the pictures as a prompt for the discussion. But it's impossible to do the discussion if you don't know what you're talking about. And when I say you don't know what you're talking about, I'm not saying if it's right or wrong. But what I'm saying is that if I don't understand what I'm talking about, then it's very difficult for me to teach that. And so it enhances my understanding. And so the biggest benefactor of the teaching on that basis is actually the teacher, because I have to focus all the time. I can't fall asleep in class and or daydream. I have to be present in everything that I say, and I have to make sense of it. And it's always on demand. There's no. It's always a challenge, especially when it comes to questions and answers. Nothing is scripted. So you have to be ready, and then you have to be able to draw on knowledge or understanding to answer those questions. And frequently you don't answer the questions really totally or to the satisfaction of the person, but it all depends on the intentions of the person asking the question and also how willing they are to receive the answer. But the spillover is to the other students who see this interaction, and they can decide whether the question is valid and whether the answer is valid. And so it's always easy to be a referee, isn't it? A lot easier than to participate in the game. But this is okay, nothing wrong with that. That gives you a chance to be a student, and it's a lot of fun to be a student. But it's actually very, very rewarding to be a teacher, because there's no question that it's improved my own knowledge and understanding of the subject. So the demands weekly come by, and I've outlined a few courses that are coming down the road. And from my point of view, I'm trying to stay current with current events, because the teaching is racing ahead, and it's always a challenge, you know, how to slot that in. There's a huge jet stream ahead, and you want to follow in that jet stream and not get swamped in the process. But there are rewards, and I want to specifically mention the Brazilian community. And if you've been following the Friday classes, they have done an outstanding job. And I wish I had the picture here, Mark, but you know, on Friday, there was a lady who allowed students to come into her home and build cups of life. If I were a policeman in Toronto and I looked at one of those pictures, I would just multiply $880 times all the people there and start writing tickets for failing to socially distance. And, you know, so this just can't happen in Canada. This is, you know, at this point in time, it's almost virtually impossible. Not even virtually, it's physically impossible. And, you know, it's so sad. And to see the beauty of the Brazilians getting together and making the cups of life, and not even having to worry about the mass because of the depletion of the energies and the conversion of the energies from the virus. And they have the confidence and the knowledge to do that. But, you know, we have a different situation here. So even if we didn't have this, you know, we're not seeing it really in the States either. I'm not seeing any pictures from groups getting together and making cups of life in their home, or, you know, sitting around the barbecue and having a little neighborly get together of a workshop. It's just not the thing that Canadians and Americans do, is it? But I know that Stefania's done an incredible job in Italy, and tomorrow will be our last class with the Italian group. I can't believe that 21 weeks went by, but they put together a fabulous crew of teachers, and this is the objective. Have more teachers to be able to take the knowledge and start spreading it. And they don't have to know everything. They just have to have a basic understanding so that they can communicate. And it starts from there. And the problem, of course, there are new knowledge seekers coming all the time. So you're kind of faced with the prospect of having to start from the beginning all the time. And so there has to be a way to organize this. And I have extreme confidence in the Italian team to be able to do that. So, you know, we're trying to do that in the other teams, and it'll come. It'll come. It is coming, because we have terrific examples. And I think there's no finer example than the Iranian community, which is set to launch, shall we say, into serious helping on this planet. Serious helping, not casual. And that's what we're trying to do. So On that note, I'd like to thank everybody for being here at the North American Corona International Team meeting. And I enjoyed all of you very much, and I hope you enjoyed listening to me and the other participants today who have contributed greatly. All continents. It's wonderful. Mark, I'm going to pass it over to you, and shall we say, pass the talking stick.